And now it's a pleasure to introduce you to Björn Lengers. Björn Lengers is from the Räubers, a Berlin-based theater company. And some of you probably already met not Björn, but the Räubers on one of our Hope conferences. There they had a workshop. It's a company who is doing a lot with digital immersive technology. Björn is now here as a fellow, so we will see him in half an hour later again presenting himself as a fellow. And now you want to talk about your work with artificial intelligence.
First of all, who is Cyberräuber? All right, so Cyberräuber is Marcel Kanapke and Björn Lengers. Marcel is having a background, or has a background in computer science and media art. I have a background in data science and business, and also in theater. We started working with each other in 2016 out of a shared interest in virtual reality and theater. We have developed a lot of very different productions on physical stages, on virtual stages, and also on hybrid stages. Have been called the German pioneers of virtual reality theater, which I'm happy to have this title in a way. 6 of those productions, by the way, were in youth theater. Yeah, like I said, we have a background in data and in computer science. So we were already actually working with machine learning and statistical methods before, in our jobs before. But in 2017, 2018, we started actually artistically exploring artificial intelligence in our work. Maybe similar to virtual reality, that had some special moment in 2014, 2015, when the technology had some breakthroughs and suddenly you could use it in our context. We thought that in that time, 2017, 18, AI also kind of suddenly produced astonishing images, texts, even sounds, music, voices. So one of our initial experiments just with doing images. So our initial questions were, what do I see here? What do I perceive in a way? Something happened with the mic, I think. What do I experience when I see this early outcomes? So in a way, what do I feel when I perceive it? What are the mechanisms of artificial neural networks? What are the mechanisms of experience? In a way, what are the mechanisms of art? So leading to the question, what actually is art? Big question, of course. And is there something like artificial art? The term already came up today. So in a way, I totally get the idea and the appeal of AI as a tool. We use it as tools ourselves in all our projects since 2019. There's not a single one where we didn't use AI. So we use it for conceptualizing, we use it for visuals, we use it actually to write funding applications. Not a single line of code in our recent VR experiences is written without Copilot or GPT. But we think there's also much more, and it is much more than a tool. A little bit like a chicken is more than a tool for producing eggs. It is something new, something special, something uncanny. It is not classical generative art. It is not only random. There are some kind of surreal memories of something. Of course, these networks are trained on human data, but they do not merely copy or imitate. Or if they do, and they can, it's actually boring. We are interested more in the gaps, like in the cracks. Into artificial art, or basically maybe art that passes the Turing test. So how would we use AI on stage, or artificial art on stage? How would a performance of artificial art look like? That was basically the first thing. What do we have to do? So the first idea, of course, was just, bring it to people in order to be able to talk about that. And so we just put it into a current production. So this is some images from a VR opera that we did, Digital Freischütz, which is a series of different episodes focused on different characters of this opera. And in this, one of these episodes, we were visiting the inner labyrinth of one of the characters. And in this labyrinth, which was actually also kind of like an exposition space, we just put in images that we created with AI. So we wanted to give other people the opportunity to basically have the experience as if they are in a gallery or in a big museum, where you stand in front of a big screen and just, immerse yourself in some video installation, in order to be able to talk to people about that later on. Okay, but of course that was not satisfying. We wanted to put it on stage. So we created a project, and that was called Prometheus Unbound. Prometheus Unbound is a production that we realized at and with the Landestheater in Linz in 2019. And it is, from the outset we wanted to put neural networks on stage, unfiltered, uncurated, unedited. We didn't think about, writing a play and with the help of AI and then staging it as a director. We wanted to set a framework where we actually could have the real-time aspect of these networks. So basically to replicate a little bit the experience that we have when we generate texts for an audience. So also the same applied to visuals, the same applied to music. In the end, we didn't use real-time generated visuals. We didn't use real-time generated music. I can get into the reasons later on, but we used real-time generated text. And in order to get it on stage, we had to invent a little mechanism because we relied, of course, on actors. And we didn't want the actors to read the text in some kind of on a big projection or on a screen that they were around with them, but we wanted them connected to the machine. And so we used a pipeline where we generated the text with GPT-2 at that time. So we worked in English, we had an English prompt, we got an English text, we translated that with another neural network into German, because it was a German production, and then we used another neural network, a text-to-speech algorithm, that actually read the text to the actors, and then they spoke it. Both of them had the text simultaneously on their ear, and they had to create a scene. And this is not improvisation theater. It sounds a lot like that, and of course it takes some of that and also a little bit of the training, but you are not improvising because you get a text. You have a little voice in your head all the time, both the actors at the same time, and they have to follow this. And in a way, that was also had huge implications about what you see on stage and how these people act with each other. In a way, I can say that they developed a mechanism very quickly that they didn't think anymore about what they were saying, because you can't think about what you hear, because then you don't have the time, because then the next words and the next sentence come up. So basically, you shut off parts of your brain. And also that's, of course, very, very interesting, because as we know, these neural networks are trained on all kinds of human data. And humanity and humans are very complex, and so there's a lot of stuff that's coming out of these neural networks also. So we had to find ways to deal with that. Images that you see here are already of the second neural theater production that we did. It was called Der Mensch ist ein anderer, The Human is Another, done at Staatstheater Wiesbaden, basically at the Junges Staatstheater, the youth theater in Wiesbaden, where we already used 3 actors because we wanted to have more interesting constellations on stage. We wanted to have more scenes. We wanted to have more interaction. Also, we wanted to have a more versatile stage. So you see those little gray blocks, which are basically our stage setting, because you never know what comes up. In Der Mensch ist ein anderer, we already had a very interesting structure that came out, by the way, in 2021, that allowed us to have a dramaturgy. It was not completely random, senseless stuff, but actually we had a follow-up of different scenes. But of course, you also get a lot of nonsense. But the interesting thing here is that as soon as actors embody this AI, and not only, they don't only, in a way, they don't do like they embody it, because they actually turn off their brain, and they stand on the stage, the usual stage conventions apply. Suddenly, it is relevant. Suddenly, you have a position of authority. It's also very dangerous, right? So we had to think a little bit about how to do this in the context of youth theater. And one of the elements was, of course, that the after discussion was an integral part of the piece. So you couldn't actually leave the room. We just made a little light change and a little stage set change, and then we got into the discussion. Why? Because we decided in this play, different from Prometheus, where we explained all the time what we were doing while we were doing it, and also showing parts of the pipeline, we decided in Der Mensch ist ein anderer not to do that. We actually played for over an hour theater, and then talked about what was happening on stage. And these discussions were, of course, were really great. So it was really good to have them. Also, of course, because of these elements of, let's say, curation and censorship that were, of course, involved, because we had to put it on stage. You don't want all kinds of racisms and sexisms and whatever in your text. Or if you have it, you have to have a mechanism how to deal with that. But we were also thinking about how would it be if we really do it like a piece of performance art, right? So what we came up with is with the same concept, and also here in this case with the same actress, to do a 12-hour performance, like a durational performance, a little bit like the 24 hours of Le Mans, in this case the 12 hours of Ingolstadt, where we connected two actors with the neural network and the mechanism, and just let them play for 12 hours. And because we didn't only want to do that, on a stage, we started on a stage, as you see here, but that was basically our studio. So we developed a fully mobile setup where the actors in the end also walked through the whole festival setup, so the whole theater, and also the city. Getting in all kinds of, I would say, very interesting constellations, situations, also conversations with people who were just, part of the festival, or who were just people who were sitting there and drinking their beer and stuff like that. We found that a very, very interesting concept, of actually putting this out, to actually make people understand a little bit more about how these processes work or not work, right? So, and also we had, of course, the opportunity in the studio setup to also talk to people. So, because we were, like I said, following these actors around with the mobile camera setup, and we were streaming what they were seeing outside the theater into the studio setup. And because we were already streaming this, we also, of course, streamed it via Twitch and YouTube to the world. So it's still online. If you want to have a look in that, I think it's worthwhile looking at that. And we Well, it's a kind of like a very lightweight production, right? So it doesn't need very much infrastructure. And so we also took this concept over to
with the
India.
pencil and paper method. You will get over 3 hours of video content from 4 different writers around the world, who each have their own unique approach. Each week you will watch new lesson where I'll teach you step by step how to take your ideas and stories and turn them into a journal that another human will be able to read. We'll also discuss different types of journaling methods that are in use today. By the end of this course, you will have a solid understanding of how this works, as well as some instructions on everything else that you need to create your first notebook. Here's a sneak peek at the top as we covered in this course. What is pen and paper?
But you do this to me. Tell me the truth.
So these are some excerpts, and I thought that because they are in English, I can play that also a little bit here. So our actors got into different constellations, and here, for example, so we had 4 actors this time. Out of we wanted to be a little bit more flexible. Also, they didn't have that training, let's say, that the other actors that we worked with in Ingolstadt had. So Deepak here, for example, he's a dancer and anyway a great artist, and he decided to actually interpret that what he was hearing, while Vibina in the background is actually talking about, or not talking about, but she's just repeating the text that she gets, and he is in a way interpreting it in somewhere in the streets of Bangalore. Or here, of course, like I said, it was also like a 12 hours performance. We started at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We stopped at 1 o'clock in the evening, and we ran basically around in the whole city. So we came in all kinds of very interesting and situations, let's say. And of course, we wanted to have them also interact with each other and to actually, enact a kind of like an intimacy and an act of theater also. So let me mute that. So basically, we are very happy about this because the constellation here was the same, that we also streamed that to the internet, but also back to the festival center. It was a festival in Bangalore, Future Fantastic. And so you had a lot of actually interesting conversations about what am I actually seeing here? And also, of course, the question, what is happening if you do not know that it is AI, right? So oftentimes we would, I'm not sure if that's the right word, ascribe certain characteristics to what I'm seeing because I'm seeing it in the context of art. But suddenly, we don't want to trick people about the nature of what they are seeing here. But in a way, we also want them to think about what is actually here differently to something that was created by a human being. And, of course, for me, the whole concept is super interesting because you see human beings struggle, right? So you need, of course, actors who know what they're doing. And nevertheless, for them, it's super difficult to do this. And it is kind of like a privilege to see them creating the thing in the moment, something that you usually only see in rehearsals. And suddenly you have this privileged position as a member of the audience. Okay, so basically I think so if you already, you know a festival or have something like an event in mind, like I said, it's a very lightweight production. Talk to me. I can confidently say we've done it in India. We can probably do it everywhere, as long as we got internet, right? So as I said, we started out working in extended reality, and I just want to give you some examples there also. I think the combination of extended reality and AI is potentially huge. There's a lot of different things that you can think of, what you could do with these two elements combined, but just one thing is like, think about tailor-made, interactive, immersive experiences, right? Because you suddenly, of course, do not have to think about how to, I don't know, if you actually really have a body in front of you. Okay, so I will quickly show you some works that we did here. So this is basically from a work called Cyber Ballet, which was not a work where we actually really used the real-time aspect of artificial intelligence. But it was very much a play about AI. The question of how would an AI perceive movement, dance, the traditions of ballet, in order to understand what it is to have a body, because probably, to be like a human being involves also having a body, right? So we are thinking, I would say we are not only thinking with our brains, but also a little bit with our guts and with how our body functions. Granted, the question is where these signals come from and where they arrive. But yeah, so what we used here is, of course, AI more or less like a visual effect. But what I wanted to show you this also because we were in this production from 2020 already using markerless mocap. So the question of how you can get three-dimensional movement sequences from a video. And the couple of the other fellows will tell you about their interest in mocap and also into AI, I think, later on. All right. So the next example that I wanted to show you, okay, this is it's actually a production. I have to skip through it. Sorry, it's a production that is not published yet. A virtual dance tale. It's a dance piece. Shoot, I have to say, in Cyber Ballet, by the way, was also not a 360 VR experience, but it was a fully 6 degrees of freedom, interactive, three-dimensional dance piece that actually worked in that way that you, as a visitor, became the dancer. So we wanted you to move in order to create a choreography. This piece is in a way different, and here we used AI in a very important aspect because all of the scenes, all of the backgrounds, if you will, are fully three-dimensional interactive scenes, but they have been created by AI. This is possible now also, which I find very, very interesting, not only because it helps you a lot with 3D modeling, so people who do that know what I'm talking about, but also you get a co-creator, which is, not only very, very helpful, but also has their own mind in a way and creates stuff that I would never create if I would do it in 3D, right? So you get this kind of like uncanny, strange look. So the avatars are, of course, not AI generated. But you get this uncanny feeling and this in-between the gaps thing that we are aiming for in your surrounding, which is super interesting. It's not just an image. You are suddenly inside this AI-generated image. Okay, next. Okay. Next thing is actually, it's also a VR work. But doesn't have to do anything with theater. We are working there to recreate in virtual reality an iconic building that was built during the communist past of Eastern Germany and was torn down after reunification. So this building, the Palast der Republik, doesn't exist anymore. We are rebuilding it in virtual reality in order that you can actually experience it. But also we are thinking about the question of memory. So how can we recreate something that is only present in the memory of people? And here we do also use artificial intelligence in order to visualize these images and also to contextualize what's happening there. Yeah, and last but not least, this is a production that I'm very proud of. Things Fall Apart is a mixed reality musical installation. So it is in a way different from what we did before, because you are sharing a room with a couple of people. So the question is, how many headsets do you have, basically? And you see the room, you see the other people around you, but you also see this world that is created by, on the one hand, music, and on the other hand, extensively with the help of artificial intelligence. So we did that. So the creation process was in summer, autumn last year. So we had access to an early version of Stable Diffusion at that time. So we created a couple of thousand images that were dealing with the content of a poem that was also the basis for the musical score. The poem is by William Butler Yeats, The Second Coming, and one of the famous lines is "Things fall apart, the center cannot hold." And in this context, you have, and you see this here, you have a shared experience where you see the others, but you see also this world that is created on the one hand by AI, but also on the other hand by you, right? So the whole thing is, of course, ever changing, and it will never be the same. I'm actually heading to London in a couple of days, because we've been invited to the London Film Festival with this work, and very, very happy that it gets this recognition. All right, so now let me see that I do not... Okay, so this is another example, but I think I will skip that. Because it's been 26, almost 27 minutes already. So, Marcel and I, we call ourselves a digital performing arts collective. And this is because we think that it is important not only to work about technology, but actually to really work with technology if you want to understand the implications. And even if it is cutting edge, and even if it doesn't make sense for a while, you learn a lot during this process. And therefore, this is like an important part of how we work and what we do. And I also think that it is important, not only to understand the technology, but also to keep an open mind in a way, and see the wondrous aspect of that, the magical aspect. Soon enough, we will understand why it's not magical, but for a while, it's interesting to be, curiosity guided, and actually to take on, to throw something at the wall and see what sticks, right? So I hope you all, in a way, agree, or at least come to agreement, that this field of artificial art, also in theater, is something that we will be working on from now on. It's super important that we do that, and very fruitful, also scary. So the last words I would give to GPT, as interpreted by Suhasini. Let's see. Oops.
We must act now. Save humanity before it's too late. Stop artificial intelligence now. Take back control of our lives. One, it is important to develop safe, ethical AI now. Why? Because AI has the potential to make some of the biggest changes in society and life as we know it.
Thank you for your attention.